the root of that, which I think could be relatable to everyone, is that when your attention dead ends inward, you're paying more attention to your emotion and your experience than your truth, or than God's truth and on Him and His presence. You're paying more attention to yourself than you're paying attention to God. And that can paralyze anybody. That can take away from what He's called you to do in that moment, on that day, with the people. Hey y'all, welcome to the My Place podcast. I'm your host, Mary McSwain. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm joined, as I normally am, by my dad, Jay McSwain.
It is so good to be here with you today, Mary, and with those of you watching this.
It's good to be here with you too. I've been meaning to ask you, did Mom like her gift that you gave her from the other day?
Mom loves her gift. It was a really cool gift that someone gave both of us the same gift, but also engraved on hers, her name on the back, and her favorite verse, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. So, yes.
It was a couple that we met when we were teaching at First Baptist Atlanta this past Sunday. This episode will obviously come out a little bit later, but we got to teach place at First Baptist Atlanta, and afterwards they have a wood carving.
Yeah, a couple has a wood carving
Business,
yeah.
Business,
yes.
Really. And it was this beautiful
cross. I got an idea
cross.
It was more a ministry because I think they give a lot of them away, but they were great. I mean, just gracious. And they had the gift of hospitality. And it was so obvious when we went over to where their business is, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Them showing us around and giving us gifts and them making us feel welcome, but also just showing us into their world and into their passions was so cool.
Yeah. And then I pulled up Facebook today, and there I am on Facebook speaking at First Baptist Atlanta. And I think I asked you, Mary, did you record that off of your phone? And you said yes, but that was really a cool experience. I have for almost 25 years gotten really close to launching Place at First Atlanta with them, and just for various reasons it didn't. But we also realized that God's timing is always the right timing. And we did some training with several of their staff at the beginning of the year. And Sunday we got to help launch it there. You and I both got to teach. And that was really a cool experience after so many years in such a great, great church that Dr. Charles Stanley and his life and ministry there before he went to Paradise had so much impact, literally, not just in the city of Atlanta, but literally the world. So it was cool to be there with you.
It was a cool opportunity. I did get to teach with you. We tag teamed like we've been doing recently, and I did snag that video at the end because that is also part of my role here. I get to teach with you a lot. We get to do podcast conversations like this, do training events, and also capture some content for you. So that's part of my role here at Place Ministries.
So talking about your role here at Place Ministries, so we're going to switcheroo a little bit in this episode. Normally, you're the one asking the questions. We're going to flip, and I'm going to ask you the questions. And I don't remember, a couple of months ago, 2 or 3 months ago, you interviewed me about my almost 30 years with Place. And so we're going to flip tonight. And I've got my little trusty questions here that I'm going to go through. But you have just finished your first, we have to say official. In other words, you got a credit card and you went on payroll for a year. You've just finished your first year. So we're going to reflect a little bit about your first year, and we're going to dive into your first year reflecting through the Place profile of your first year. So I've got some questions. How was your first year out of school and working with Place?
I would say it was both a learning curve and a testament of the Lord's faithfulness to His work and His ministry and to my life. I think it was a learning curve because every new season of life comes with new challenges, new dynamics, new people, people leaving, people coming in, comes with new schedules and new tasks and new priorities. So I would say it was a learning curve in the sense that seasons of life bring change. And with that change, you have to learn to navigate that change and to not just survive it, but thrive it. And this past year was also a testament of the Lord's faithfulness to provide and to give just enough clarity to take the next step, but not enough clarity to eliminate faith.
Yeah. Was it what you expected?
Yes and no. I think I had such little expectations that I can't say that it
I was a lot nicer than you expected, right? Kidding.
I don't know if I can answer that on camera. I'm just kidding. He's a great boss.
But every now and then we had a few moments, haven't we?
You and Mom like to call it intense fellowship.
Yeah, we've had just a few, but not bad. But we have decided that when we speak together, we do really well. That wasn't any surprise at all. I mean, well, it may have been, but I'm sorry, I diverted you. Was your first year what you expected? Sorry, guys, I do this to her quite. Even when we're not on camera, I do this and just regularly talking to her. Was it what you expected?
It was what I was expected in the sense that I had little expectations for it not to be what I expected. I didn't know what to expect, and so I didn't have expectations that weren't met. I think a lot of times we hurt ourselves with our own expectations when they're not met or when they're misplaced. And I think I tried to go into this whole new season of life of living here again after living in Birmingham, of not being in college anymore, of having a job and being in this new part of your adult life. I tried to go into it with as little expectation as possible because I know so often our expectations can hurt us when they're not met. And so I think I intentionally tried to not have expectations. So I can't say that they weren't met. I can't say that they were exceeded because I tried to go in with as little as possible.
What has been one of your biggest learning curves going into this season?
My biggest learning curve, I think, and it seems simple to say, I think time management. And I will say, Mom and I got coffee last week, and she was asking me actually a lot of these same questions. We had a very similar conversation. I don't know if my answers to you versus her will be the same, but I told her one of my biggest learning curves, and one of the biggest things, I'll say learning curve, but one of the biggest things I learned that I want to take into this next year is learning how to manage your time, learning how to manage your personal time versus your work time, the way you spend your time at work, how to do all the things that you need to do and how to get them done. And she said, which in some way made me feel a lot better, she said that that's very common after your first year of work, after your first year in a new job. You're not the first person to have said that. And somehow, even me talking about this tonight in this conversation, my job doesn't look like other people's jobs. It's
not like your sister's job who works for Carter's in their corporate office, the clothing store. And it's not totally structured, but it's pretty much she goes to work at 8 and gets off at 5, except in the real busy times from season to season. But your job's nothing like that.
Correct. My job's not very conventional. It's not exactly cookie cutter, which has its pros and cons. But to hear her say that you're not the first person that said that, you're not the only person, it didn't invalidate what I was feeling, but it affirmed what I was feeling in the sense that it's not abnormal for that to be the common response. And I think that's common in a lot of our lives when we hear that we're not the only person that has struggled with this. We're not the only person that has gone through this. It doesn't make light of what we're feeling. It doesn't invalidate what we're feeling or make it less important. It just means that we're not alone and we're not on this island trying to figure something out. Other people are right alongside us trying to figure that out, and we're not wrong for having struggled or having had to learn this one thing.
And I think, if I'm correct, y'all also agreed that a couple of times a month, 2-3 times a month, she's going to start meeting with you and kind of talking through things like what you guys talked about this last week, but business things and just really evolving into as you guys your age like to say, adulting, and adulting specifically as it relates to work in your career. Here's another question, and you can respond to that one in a minute if you want. Here's another question. How has knowing yourself, and we're going to specifically look at knowing yourself through the place profile, how has that helped you navigate this first year of your career?
I think it has given me some direction as to what strengths I have and what strengths I should lean into, and the different opportunities that are presented to me, the different tasks that I have on my plate. Knowing the strengths that I can lean into has been clarifying and also encouraging. It's a confidence builder when you know that you have certain skills, you have certain tools in your toolbox that can help you with confidence walk onto the job site that you've been tasked with that day. I think on the flip side of that, it also means that I know some of my weaknesses that I need to guard against, that I need to acknowledge and also work from or ask for help in certain ways. And so I think knowing both my strengths and in turn my weaknesses has given me clarity, direction, confidence, and even an ability to articulate what I can do, but also some of the ways that I've been frustrated or confused. I have an awareness of this is what that is rooted in. And these are some of the ways that I can address those frustrations. And it starts with being able, if you can't identify a problem, you can't solve it. So being able to identify the problem or the frustration gives me the first step I need to acknowledge the problem, but also solve the problem, or acknowledge the weakness and grow from the weakness. But I have the language to be able to articulate that in order to move from it, from where I am to where I want to be.
So let's dive into specifically the different elements of even place. So the first one is personality. What was helpful in you knowing your personality in this first year? And then we'll look at what were some of the growth areas that you figured out through your personality. But what was helpful in knowing your personality?
This might reiterate what I said earlier, but it gave me an awareness of some of the strengths that I brought to the table. I also think in a way right now it's helping me to articulate some of the strengths that I had, but my personality, I'm a really high C personality. We use the DISC model, DISC. C personalities are very analytical, very methodical, very conscientious, very reflective. And so I think one of my strengths was the ability to analyze what was going on, to reflect on what I was doing, how I was feeling, so that I could be aware of what was going well. I could reflect on what went well when we did X, Y, or Z. I could reflect on, okay, what went well? What do I want to replicate? And then what are some of the things that I want to work on? And I think that strengthened my personality to be able to analyze and reflect, allowed me to take note of what I want to replicate and take note of what I want to work on.
Okay, let's go to the other side. What were some weaknesses, we call them dark sides of your personality, in this first year that you saw were obstacles, hindrance, roadblocks in navigating this first year in your work career?
I'm sure many people have heard this before. It's something that we've said in our conversations here on the podcast before. Any strength taken to an extreme can become a weakness. So my strength, my tendency of my personality to analyze things taken to an extreme can become very paralyzing, because you're caught up analyzing everything that it's hard to move forward when you're stuck analyzing what's already happened. I think another strength, being conscientious, at times taken to an extreme, you become very critical of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that criticism can again become paralyzing. And one of the things, again, taken to an extreme, it can paralyze you. It can deaden your attention inward. It can cause you to pay more attention to your own experience or your own emotion rather than what's going on around you, rather than what you need to do, or even more importantly, the truth that you should be dwelling on more constantly than your own emotions or your own experience or your own circumstances. So I think my strength taken to an extreme would be analysis leads to paralysis, contemplation can lead to criticism. And the root of that, which I think could be relatable to everyone, is that when your attention dead ends inward, you're paying more attention to your emotion and your experience than your truth, or than God's truth and on him and his presence. You're paying more attention to yourself than you're paying attention to God. And that can paralyze anybody. That can take away from what he's called you to do in that moment, on that day, with the people that he's brought you in front of. So I think that has been one of the things that I've learned through both my strengths and my weaknesses.
Let's move into spiritual gifts, because we're going to look at PLACE. So obviously you're in vocational ministry. I mean, we are a ministry. A lot of people that watch this may not be in vocational ministry, but we'll use our gifts, whether we're in ministry or not. When they're used for eternal purposes, then they're our spiritual gifts. How have you been able to use your spiritual gifts in ministry? And I've got a little bit that I'll say about that. So I want to give a little input into that too.
I want to reiterate one of the things that you said is that while my vocation is ministry, my job is ministry, I think you can do ministry in your job regardless of whether or not it is ministry. You can use your gifts in wherever the Lord has called you to, when you're pointing people towards eternity, when you're pointing people towards God. I think my gifts I've been able to use in the tasks of my job. My job is ministry, but there are tasks within that job description and within that. And I've been able to use my gifts in the different jobs that I've been given, the different roles that I've been given. And knowing that the roles that I've been given and the roles that I choose are knowing how I can use my gifts, because everyone will fulfill a role. Everyone will fulfill a job in their own way. They'll get it done, but they will fulfill it in the way that they're wired, in the way that they're gifted, and the unique things that they bring to the table. And I think with the jobs that I've done, podcasting, writing, speaking, teaching, those are in line with my gifts. And I've said yes to those, knowing that they're in line with my gift. But also on the flip side of that, when I walk into those opportunities, knowing what my gifts are, how I can use them, and that it's God that gave them to me, that it's God that equipped me to do the thing that he's called me to do, it gives so much confidence and clarity and direction that he's the one who gifted you with this. He's the one that has equipped you with this. And when you're using it to honor him, he will equip you for whatever job, whatever role, whatever opportunity. This is my specific opportunity that he's given me, but he's also the one that gave me the gifts and called me to the role. And I think that's the same for everyone. And it gives so much confidence and clarity when you're pursuing the thing that he's put right in front of you. But when you know what gifts you have, it gives you so much more confidence and direction in what you're doing.
I think one of the things that you've been very fortunate about, and I'm not going to take credit for it because God has taught me, is that I think you had enough intuition and insight to take a job that would line up with your giftings. And I think we have worked well together to ensure that the majority of your time has been in those giftings. But even the time that you're spending and going to begin spending with your mom, from a career standpoint, it's going to be some things that aren't necessarily more business type things. And again, not necessarily teaching, studying God's word. But I think one of the best things that's happened with your first year is that you have really been able to put the majority of your time toward what you're gifted at, not trying to figure out things that you're not gifted at. Now, this next question, because we got to move through these. This next question, I want to actually read it to you. It's written down. We're talking about abilities. What role has your environment played in your approach to an evaluation of your job this past year? What role has your environment, which is your abilities, played in your role this past year?
And for those of y'all who aren't familiar, in the PLACE acronym, the abilities is really the environment that your personality and your spiritual gifts will flourish in. There's 6 different abilities or environments that we talk about. one of my top abilities is that I'm conventional, which means that I need structure. I love structure. I want to know what's expected of me. I like to have boxes drawn for me so that within that box, when I know the expectation and the rules, I'll flourish in that structure and within and under that expectation.
And if you're not given that box, you'll flounder.
Yes.
So if you'll flourish, if you're given the boundaries and structure, you'll flounder if you're not given the boundaries and the structure.
Yes. So knowing that about myself and being able to articulate that has played a huge role in my evaluation of how my job is going, how my life is going. And because sometimes when you're not in the right environment, you'll get frustrated, you'll get confused, you won't feel effective, you won't feel fulfilled. And so I know that I need that box, whether I draw it for myself or whether I ask for it or whether my boss knows that he needs to draw it for me, which we've ran into that a few times as well. Because I know that about myself, because I have an awareness of the environment that I will flourish in, I can evaluate in hindsight or in the future, have I had a box? If I haven't had a box, maybe that's why I'm frustrated. If I'm going into an opportunity or I'm presented with a task or with a project where I feel like I don't have a box, I know that I can ask for more rules. I can ask for more expectation. I can articulate what I need in order to be effective, in order to be productive. I can articulate those needs that I have. So it's helped me to evaluate in hindsight, okay, why was I frustrated? Or why did this go really well? Maybe it's because I had that environment, whether I created it for myself or it was created for me. I had an environment where I could flourish, where I felt effective. And when I look at new opportunities, I'm either able to create that structure for myself or articulate that to somebody else. And I think for everyone, having an awareness of the environment that you will flourish in will be a game changer in how effective you feel in whatever role or job that you have.
Okay, because we want to get through all 5 of these in our about 30-minute time frame. Passion. Have you felt a way to pursue something that you're passionate about this year? Something, someone, something. Have you felt a way through your job to pursue what you're passionate about?
I said this earlier that this past year has been a testament of the Lord's faithfulness and provision. And I saw that so clearly about a month after I moved back here and started with Place. It's not something that I've done directly with Place, but it is a result of Place, knowing your place, and other people having an awareness of that too. With passion, a lot of times we say that passion originates from the heart, but it's oftentimes
Proverbs 4:23.
Yes,
above all else, guard your heart. Yeah.
Oftentimes it's born out of experience. Who or what you're passionate about is oftentimes a reflection of past experience. And in the Place workbook, we have a page where it has felt passions, who you're passionate about. And there's a list of all these options. And at the very bottom, it says other, and it has a blank space. And in that space, I've always put athletes because that's a shared experience that I have, a life experience that for a long time in my life was the most prominent and dominating life experience that I had, specifically high school athletics, because that is something that I did in high school. And so when I got to North Hall, the church that I go to now and that I also work at, they knew my story. They knew that I played sports. My senior pastor grew up with my basketball coach. So they all knew that about me. It's not hard to guess that I would have a shared experience and maybe a passion for high school athletes. But about a month after I moved back, I got a call from someone on a random Tuesday afternoon, didn't have his number. And he called me. He's the head of something called NG3, and it's a high school ministry that works with leaders in the community to pour into and disciple groups. A lot of times it's sports. So you'll have different sports teams and they'll have a leader from the community that disciples them, that does life with them. And he called me up that Tuesday and said that their volleyball team was in need of a leader. They're halfway through their season. But he said, you are highly recommended from Bucky, who's my senior pastor, Jameson, our youth pastor, and basically gave me the parameters, told me what it was, and asked if I would just think about it, if that would be something that I was interested in. And I prayed about it. And when we teach Place, a lot of times we ask people to write down what passion means to them. And then afterwards, one of the powerful parts of that session is when we ask them, are you pursuing that passion? So when that opportunity was presented to me to spend time with these girls and to pour into them, having already identified my passion, knowing even my spiritual gifts and what that dynamic could look like, it gave me so much confidence and clarity that this was something the Lord had brought to my doorstep. And knowing who I was passionate about, knowing my life experiences, knowing my spiritual gifts gave me so much clarity and confidence that this is something that the Lord has brought before me. And I can confidently give my yes because I already know who I'm passionate about. I've already thought about it. I've already thought about the ways that I'm gifted and the ways that I could give away those gifts in this environment, because without thinking about it, I'd thought about it. So having an awareness of who I was passionate about and then being presented with an opportunity was such a testament of the Lord's faithfulness and provision.
So we've kind of talked about evaluating your first year through your personality, through your gifts, abilities, your passion. And really, if you look at what we've been doing is looking at your life experiences through this past year. But if you had to summarize, looking at the place experiences of life, what has your life experiences this past year taught you about what you're doing really vocationally in your career right now?
I think this past year, if I had to sum it up in one word, has taught me patience. With any changes and seasons of life, there's patience to learn what the Lord is doing by it. There's patience to gain perspective in that season. There's patience to gain perspective over why the season had to change sometimes, or what good will come out of this next season when you don't know what it'll look like. So I think if I had to sum up this past year in one word, it would be patience to accept the change, to learn how to thrive in the new season, patience to gain the perspective I needed to see what the Lord was doing, and trust that that perspective will come, and patience for however long it takes to get that perspective.
You know, one of the things as you've been talking, I think about one of the principles in place with the experiences of life is, first of all, you have to acknowledge your life experiences. And then you have to acknowledge that you survived or thrived. And I just want to say, I feel like this year that you have thrived in what God has called you to do, coming alongside what we're doing at Place Ministries. And I know sometimes internally, I know the way you're wired, you felt like maybe you were just surviving and not thriving. But I do believe that you have thrived. And I kind of feel like what we've been doing, you know how you have these yearly reviews? Well, we've kind of been doing in front of a camera a yearly review. But I do want to say to those of you that are listening or watching, evaluation is a huge component of how you will thrive in your career, in your relationships, in life in general. So, Mary, you want to close out talking about evaluation and the value that you've seen, not just for you, but for a lot of people that may watch this, because we're not doing this just for you and I to talk in front of a camera. We're doing it to help people evaluate themselves as it relates to what God's calling them to, maybe from a vocational area of their life or ministry. But
You said it so well. Evaluation of where you've been is so often a key to help you thrive in where you're going. The way that we have evaluated this past year is through the lens of my place profile. And I've been able to evaluate it in the way that we did with, I think, such clarity because I had the language that the tool gave. And I think that's an encouragement to other people, is one, to evaluate in life experiences. We say, evaluate whether you survived or thrived. And sometimes evaluating can seem like a daunting task, evaluating in hindsight. But this has been a tool that has helped, that has given me the language to be able to evaluate that where I've been, to help me thrive and where I'm going next. And I think that can be the same for everyone. when they go through the place assessment or they start to catch on to this language, it can be a tool to help them evaluate where they've been, and so that they can thrive in where they're going and where the Lord has called them. So that would be my encouragement to y'all, is that evaluation is so important, reflecting on where you've been. Scripture says to examine yourselves, examine where you've been. And so I would encourage y'all, evaluate where you've been. And if you need a tool for evaluation, let Place be that tool. Let it help you have the language that you need to articulate that evaluation for yourself. And whether that means that you need to take the Place assessment to be able to articulate those things, whether that means that you need to listen to more of these conversations to give yourself a working knowledge of that language and how it applies to real life, whatever tool that you need, let Place be one of those tools in your toolbox to help you evaluate where you've been so that you can thrive in the places that the Lord is calling you to next.